Now, where did I put that? Here it is. Welcome to the Toolbox, where we discuss the tools we utilize every day. Yours to use or toss. It's up to you. But I hope you enjoy. Hey everybody, before we get to the show, just want to give a shout out to my breacher teams. They are Corey Hiker and the Pantaway podcast. Can't thank you guys enough for supporting me and keeping this show moving forward. If anybody out there wants to get involved and become one of my breacher teams or help out in any way, head on over to my Patreon page at www.patreon.com/toolsforthetoolbox. And without any further ado, we'll get right to the show. Thanks. Hey everybody, welcome back to Tools for the Toolbox. This is episode 5 of season 2, and we are going to get into it with another fantastic guest here. But I'm going to let him introduce himself. So, who are you, and what is your military background?
Nick Stroesser from Corporal for Life Apparel. So I joined the reserves with the Essex and Kent Scottish in 2001, pre-September 11th, which was pretty weird and crazy times.
Yep.
I deployed in 2006 to Kandahar as part of the National Security Element, security platoon, and then came back. I did my PLQ, so I'm still a corporal for life because I got out as a corporal. But I was a Master Jack for a small period of time.
Hey, Master Corporal is just an appointment. You're still a corporal.
You're just a corporal with a beef.
Yep.
And in 2008, I transferred over to the Air Force as a firefighter. Did 3 years in Bagotville, Quebec. And then in 2014, retransferred back to the UK Scots. Did another almost a year, and then I got out and became a firefighter.
Right on.
And here I am.
So, well, not only are you a firefighter, but you also run Corporal for Life.
I run Corporal for Life, correct.
Yeah. So tell me about that. How long has that been going on, and how do you manage both of those?
So that luckily with being a firefighter, we do have an awesome schedule. We work 24-hour shifts, so it works out. We work 42 hours a week, and the rest of the time is ours. So
nice.
I like that, getting that 24 hours out, bang those out, and then you get the rest of your week to yourself. So yeah, Corporate for Life started in 2015, and it was a night of beers and other things with a fellow veteran. So a good buddy of mine had come down to Windsor from Brockville. He used to spend the weekend with me, and it was probably 4 a.m. We were in my garage, and I don't remember much of it.
The best ideas come from those, right?
Exactly. And I've been hearing that a lot lately about businesses, and it's encouraging to me, because at the time it was just me and my buddy shooting the breeze about our time overseas, getting out, being in the Army after a tour, and the whole pride of being a soldier thing. I've always been proud, but it wasn't something that when I was in, we weren't talking about it. We weren't out wearing shirts that said, hey, I was in the Army. That was kind of a no-no. And,
you could tell them, right? They were the Canex guys, right? They had the shirts directly from the Canex. Yeah, exactly.
And so him and I had this, I don't remember the full conversation, obviously, but it came out about our pride in our service. And we just, at the time, unless I didn't look hard enough, there was nothing to wear other than the Canex stuff, which I have nothing against it, but I wasn't going to wear a little cheesy. Exactly. I wasn't wearing the Canadian Armed Forces t-shirt with the logo because that wasn't something that interested me. And it wasn't until the next morning I actually remembered our conversation, and I called him. I said, do you remember what we talked about last night? And he says, kind of. And I said, man, t-shirts. And that was, I'm sure there was other companies around, and I feel bad. I apologize to those who had companies at that time, but in 2015, I had no idea where to get something like that.
Yep.
And then I just started drawing on paper. And that's pretty much.
That's how most things happen, right? Like you get an idea in your head, you're like, oh, I don't think anybody's ever thought of this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it now. And if the world is, no one can read anybody's mind, right? If you don't know what's out there, you don't know what's out there. And that's this is the benefit of capitalism as a whole, right?
Yeah.
If you have an idea, sure, throw it out there to the market, see what happens, man. And then, it's such a great analogy because you kind of do that when you get out of the Army, right? Like you just throw yourself into the mercy of the world, because we're such a small portion of the Canadian society. So how long have you've been out since 14? And so how was that transition? I mean, going from service to service, going as like military into firefighters, I can't imagine it being that much of a transition, but you're still going to the civilian world, right? How did yours go?
So I cut my contract a bit early with the Air Force because I heard that my hometown was hiring firefighters.
Nice.
So I took that risk and I put my release in. I came back with my now wife, who had to put up with a lot of shit.
Don't they all?
Which I'm sure a lot of you guys can understand.
Yeah.
So yeah, we moved back to Windsor. We got a little house. I literally went door to door the day after I moved. Not door to door, but business to business looking for a job.
Yeah.
I just need to make money. It didn't matter what I did. Unfortunately, I didn't get on with the fire department the first crack at it or the second crack. So I had to do what I had to do to survive, which everybody knows what that's about.
Yep.
And luckily, the military gave me those tools to keep in that fight.
Yeah.
Like, I knew I was going to be a firefighter at some point. I just didn't know how long it was going to take or where I was going to be.
Yeah. Well, you can give up real easy, right? All you got to do is stop.
I mean, I was pretty close to actually coming back, and there was nothing wrong with it. I talked to my wife, said, let's go back to Bagotville. I have a job. I've been only out for, at that time, about a year.
Yeah.
Let's just go back. Like,
easy recruitment back in.
Yeah, her family was there, and I had a job there. And I was like, I can't, not like I don't like the civilian world, but like most of us, I didn't quite fit in right off the bat. Yeah.
And the Army pays the bills.
Exactly.
Like that's at the very least, it pays the bills.
And like I was with my reserve unit, but at that time, there was very little employment other than your 1 day a week.
Yeah. 1
week in a month. So I remember going in, asking all the time, you got any class C stuff, any class B stuff? Give me some work. And there wasn't much.
Yeah. And after the drawdown in 14, that would have been like everything stopped in Afghanistan. Everyone was done. There was no deployments on the horizon. That's,
exactly.
Yeah, that's not a great spot. Well, so if you could go back right now and talk to yourself back then, give yourself one piece of advice on that transition, what would you?
Stick with the fight, man. Don't get down on yourself.
Yeah.
Like, that was easy. It was easy to want to shut her down and then give up. But luckily I had a strong woman with me, and so far it's working out.
Well, so far that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Everything's a fight. Everything is, if you look at it in a way that you can battle through anything, right? Like, and just gotta pound through, and I don't know how many times I heard this one. It's like, you're never out of the fight until you're out of the fight.
Yeah.
So it makes absolute perfect sense. So let's get into what we really want to talk about today. What was it? I mean, we talked about this a second ago, but what was it that really drew you towards representing the service, I guess? So there was lots of times when I was in that I absolutely hated the Army. And then I realized that it wasn't quite that I hated the Army. I just hated where I was working at the time, or I hated who my boss was, or so there's a lot of resentment towards your some of the people you don't like that you're forced to work with.
Sure.
That gets applied to service a lot of times. So what was it that like clicked in your head that was like, oh yeah, right, I should be proud of my service?
Just because I guess as I started working with civilians, and again, nothing against civilians, I'm one now, but I just realized how different we are.
Yeah.
And that was something for me to embrace.
Makes sense. The thing is, though, you're not a civilian. You're a veteran.
True.
And I harp on that regularly because it is a title that no one can take away. Right. And it's really important, I think, for anybody that served in the military to look at themselves as a veteran, because there was, like, when I got out, again, like you were saying, there wasn't a lot of pride. Like, there was personal pride in what you did. And I have great pride in what my trade does.
Yeah.
outside of that, so there's a lot of times where, if you weren't in Afghanistan at the time in 10, 11, and 12, if you weren't over there fighting, it was not a great place to work. So it's a challenging thing to deal with. But I think for me, I had to make that switch in my head. And like, I have great pride in my trade.
Yep.
Versus great pride in the unit or the squadron I was with or whatever, right? And I found that I was always looking for something, like some sort of shirt, some sort of hat, something that was always attractive to me, that was kind of built that feeling, I guess. Never could find anything, because you're right, the Canex was lame. And
that was all there was.
I think I have 2 or 3 of mine. I don't think I have them left anymore, but I think I did buy 2 or 3 Canex shirts, and I was that guy. I think there was the one that was the Jack Daniels lookalike shirt that was like, I'm a Canadian soldier and blah 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 blah. There was a whole thing. It was at the time, young 20-year-old, I was like, yeah, I'm fucking hardcore. It was so sad. But so where you said you just put stuff pen to paper, right?
I actually remember I was at my fire station, and because it was a couple days after me and my buddy had hung out, and that's where I drew the logo up. It was like Corporal for Life clothing, and I kind of drew not a great drawing of some chevrons, and then I played with it for a while until I came up with the C4L, and I said, that kind of looks cool.
Yep.
And then guys at work who were not military types looked at me like I was crazy. Like, you're not going to launch a t-shirt brand, dude. Good luck. Have at her. And I was like, you know what? You may be right, but I'm going to give this a go. And that's where it started. Just piece of paper.
Building a brand is not an easy thing to do, right? And starting from scratch, especially in today's world, social media and everything else. I mean, you're fighting against. At the time, there was. I'm just trying to think. In 2015, I think there was like Groundstyle had just gotten started, or they had just like 2016 or something. So
I'll tell you a quick awesome story about Groundstyle. That was one of my bigger. The biggest help I had, actually, because I was watching, I'd watch an MMA fight and I see Groundstyle.
Yeah.
I'd see friends of mine like Groundstyle, and I was like, what is this Groundstyle? So I checked it out, and I actually wrote an email to Groundstyle saying, hey, my name is so-and-so, this is what I'm doing. Is there anybody willing to talk to me?
Mm-hmm.
And I got a phone call from the, at the time, CEO, Daniel, who is no longer the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
He talked to me for probably 45 minutes on the phone, and he gave me what I needed. He gave me a good shit kicking. Because at that time the company was going, but it wasn't going super well.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Let me just sell what's left and get out of this, because it's a waste of my time.
Yeah.
And he actually gave me like a sergeant's ass kicking, and where the butt pucker was happening. And he told me, listen, man, you have to make this survive, make this work. I was like, wow. And I still have a notebook with exactly what I wrote down as he was talking to me. So Groundstyle was one of the biggest helps to me.
That's fantastic.
When I was getting started.
Yeah. So, and I'm just trying to remember there wasn't a whole lot of other stuff other than like Affliction was pretty big in the beginning of MMA, and then Groundstyle kind of got into it. But like where I was going to go with it was the fact that you're throwing into a market that isn't saturated, right? And you're looking at something at the very beginning and going, how do I make my mark?
Exactly.
that is not an easy question. So what were you doing to build that brand? Because that's hard.
You talked about branding at the time. Up until a couple years ago, 3 years ago, let's say, I didn't know what branding was. You know what I mean? I just, I had hired a Google consultant to get me Google search results, like, Canadian military clothing, Canadian veteran clothing. And And if you look that up, I don't know what it looks like now, but at the time it was a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And there was no way to kind of separate myself from that pack.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until maybe 2 or 3 years ago I started figuring out, let me brand. Let me, you know, I'm going to start making memes and slapping a little C4L in the corner. And then it was just get that logo out there.
Mm-hmm.
Get the logo as far as you can get it, you know, get people knowing what it is, what it's about. And it seems to be working so far, and I'm just going to keep plugging away at it.
Yep.
But like, yeah, branding's everything, really. You can launch any kind of business you want, but if you don't have a brand or a name or anything behind you, you're not going to go far.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Back in the day, it was always, you know, word of mouth was the big one, because people would talk about what they trusted, what they, you know, someone would ask, hey, where do you get your shirts? I like those. And you'd be like, oh yeah, I get them from Core for Life. And you'd be like, oh shit, I should probably go by there.
Yep.
And social media has now changed that to the point that like everyone's screaming about everything, right? How did you set yourself apart from that? Because it's like watching a bunch of birds scream in a tree at the two females that are in there, right? How are you different?
Consistency.
Yeah.
I actually remember talking to Daniel from Groundstyle. He said to me, go on to my social media sites and do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. That was literally what he said. And I was like, what do you mean do what you do? He said, you'll see. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I followed his Instagram, his Facebook. He posted a lot. He posted articles, military type articles. I don't think they're into memes too much, but there are other memes out there. So I just started doing memes.
Yeah.
I started making these memes. I'm sure if you go back to 2016 or 15 when I started making memes, they look ridiculous. And they probably still do. But it was a way to stay consistent.
Yeah.
I figured the more I put Corporate for Life out there, the more people are going to see it. If you don't like it, you can stop looking at it. If you do like it, you're going to see it all the time.
Yep.
And I remember in Toronto, I was at TACCOM a couple years ago, and I remember people walking by and saying, I've seen that before. Mm-hmm. And that in my head, I was like, holy shit.
It works.
It works. Even here, like right now I'm at my store in Devonshire Mall in Windsor, Ontario, mm-hmm. which I can't say is a huge patriotic town because we are right next to Detroit.
Yep.
So we're about as American as you can get. But even when I had my first booth here at the mall, it was like, I've seen that before. I don't know where. And that was like the clicking point to me. Like, okay, just keep doing what you're doing and just intensify it now.
Yeah.
People may bitch about it, which I've had people, you post too much. Okay, don't look at it.
Yeah.
That means it's working.
Yeah.
So I would just say consistently post. And don't just post nonsense either. I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. I get, well, you said consistency, right? Everything, it's got to be consistent with whatever the brand or whatever you're trying to build. And I liken it to being in the defensive posture, right? Like if you are in a trench line and you send out a patrol here and there and whatever, it's going to be easy for people to slip by you. It is. If you're hard consistent, you have people watching the lines and you're sending out patrols in a consistent, continuous manner where there's no gaps in someone looking in that area, it's going to be really hard for anybody to get through that.
Exactly. I like that.
Yeah. And I try to liken everything to something we learned in the military, because we learned pretty much everything we need to survive. And it's just, putting those pieces together, going like, how have I learned this before? What can I utilize this training for? Right. And I think that plays into, everything that we want in terms of being a soldier, right? Like we became soldiers to kind of test ourselves and be of service and do all these great things. But once you get out, you kind of sit there going like, how I was talking to some guys on the last podcast about like, I'm a machine gunner. Whoop-de-doo. Like, how do I transfer being a machine gunner into civilian life? Well, fuck, there's tons of ways.
Yeah.
And if you break it down, right, if you look at the skill set versus the physical nature of it, then you can break it down to anything.
Exactly.
What about the process? Because there's a creative process, right? Like, you have to come up with an idea. You have to figure it out. You got to play with the artwork. You have to see if that's going to fit on the machine, whether you're going to press it, blah, 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 blah. What is that process like for you?
So for me right now, it's a one-man show, as in I run the entire operation, but I do have a lot of amazing people behind the scenes. Even when I have the store running, I have my dad works here part-time when it was open.
Yeah.
I just happen to pick an awesome group of people to help me out. And that's something that I don't think anybody likes asking for help, but you have to.
Yep.
And in business, in life, in mental, everything. So I have a local print shop who's been amazing with me, and that allows me to come up with an idea, put it on paper. I send it to them. They get the artwork going. They have those shirts printed in X amount of days.
Nice.
If I were going to start printing my own stuff, I'd set myself back years. And it's something at the beginning, I kind of thought of, like, maybe I should learn this craft. And kudos to all those guys out there doing their own printing, because that does not look like something I want to get into.
It's a ton of work.
Exactly. I may one day want to just try it to say I did it. But as for that whole thing doesn't interest me at all.
Yeah.
I just like coming up with the ideas, bouncing ideas off other people. If it makes sense, like, I don't know if people will notice, I put out a lot of, what do you think about this shirt? If it's shit, it's shit. But if I get enough feedback, I'm going to put that out there. And it's so far, it's been working for me.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And then I just get ideas as they pop into my head. I might wake up in the middle of the night, have an idea, and I have to write it down.
Yeah.
That way the next day I can get that on a piece of paper and say, that's my next shirt, or that's my next product, or that's, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to say I'm a creative guy, but I remember since I was a kid, I like drawing stuff.
Yeah. I
probably got drawings from when I was in grade 2. Oh, wow. I just love drawing stuff. I'm not great at it, but I have ideas. Yeah. And thank God those ideas are selling, because that's the reason I'm in business right now.
Well, it would put you somewhere else, right? Like you wouldn't be where you are right now if you couldn't do it. And I have always liked drawing stuff in some similar way. I like coming up with ideas, going, oh, that's a great idea. Except I really suck at drawing.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I can't even make. I have a very hard time making anything even look remotely what I want it to look like. So
I'm the same way.
Yeah, it's not an easy skill. And I talked to Damian Robertson a few episodes back in season 1, and man, his artwork is insane. But he, it's basically the same thing, right? I got an idea. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna draw it out, see what happens, and then if he likes it 10, 20 iterations down the road, I got another buddy of mine who's an artist as well, and he's like, I said I had some ideas for a new logo for the podcast, and he's like, draw it 30 times, and I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, draw it 30 times. And I'm like, seriously, what is going to change? And he's like, you never know. See what happens. Like, and it's the same thing when you were saying with the memes, right? You're throwing shit at the wall, basically.
Pretty much.
And if it sticks, cool. Yeah. Right. And then you run with it. And that's a hard skill to really quantify, right? Because I mean, anybody can try something once, twice, 3 times, 4. Like there's not many people that will sit there and go like, oh, I'm going to keep trying. This isn't working. Yeah. I'm going to just And
I got a lot of shit to throw, so it's going to stick.
Well, that helps. If you got a big pile, I mean, you may as well use it. Right?
It's going to stick.
But yeah, I find the biggest trick is I don't have a lot of style.
Okay. I like most of us don't.
Right. Like I like blue jeans. I like black shirts. I don't wear a lot of flashy stuff. And I mean, I'm wearing a red shirt right now just because it's Friday. But I like, if you look at my wardrobe, it's pretty static. There's not a whole lot of shifts in there. But there's something when you look good to yourself, when you can look at it and just go like, yeah, man, it makes you feel good. Yeah. Right? It's the same thing. Physical health, mental health, right? If you can look at yourself, that's why so many dudes take pictures at the gym, right? You get a good pump on, you're like, I like myself, right?
Yeah.
And I think your brand is that's part of it, at least in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, all I wear is C4L. Other than when I have to, I have to get prettied up. But even that, I'm looking at trying to put a line out for going out. Like my wife's always, I like your stuff and it looks good, but that's all you wear. I'm like, that's all I wear. That's right, because it's mine. But I wouldn't mind having something that C4L that I can wear out like to a dinner and not have to. I mean, logos are fun to wear all the time, but once in a while you got to, like your DUs, you got to get dressed up and look decent.
Yeah, I was gonna say the thing about DUs is like it doesn't matter how, like, what kind of soldier you are. Your DUs are like, you look slick in those because they're so specific and everybody looks the same and like it's but it's very hard to be in your DUs and feel like shit.
You're right.
And I don't know if it's the fact that everything's so tight, it keeps you like jacked up. But
they look good, man. They look good.
And it, like I said, when you look good, you feel good, and that makes you work harder. It makes you do what you're doing that much
better.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say maybe you should reach out to Jeff Alpa out on the East Coast.
I've actually he's another guy that I have to thank for. I believe I called him on the phone.
Oh, nice.
And we shot the shit for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
When I was still in that, like, what do I do next phase? Like, how do I make this work?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he was a great guy to talk to. And
he's a great dude to talk to.
He's got stores open, and I just love the whole veteran business community, like the podcast, the clothing, the coffee, you name it, man. I love seeing it.
I've said this a few times on multiple podcasts, but there is a veteran renaissance, as I like to call it.
100%.
And it really comes down to, I think a lot of it is we've tested ourselves physically, right? Most of us, we've been to war. We're ready to, okay, now what do we do? Right? Check that box. I'm going to move on to something else. But as you said earlier, the resilience to just like keep throwing shit. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, keep throwing. Like, we'll try something else, and we'll try something else, and we'll try something else. And I think I did my first podcast I did with Chris Williams from MIA, and it was a good podcast. We talked about isolation and all that good stuff, but that was my first iteration of it, right? And there were a lot of mistakes that I made in that podcast that I fixed in the next couple, and then I fixed in the next couple, and then you start to kind of, you put your own spin on it, you put your own feel on it. I didn't really like how that sounded, or I'm going to go do this, and I'm sure it's the same way in apparel, right? You're looking at everybody else's stuff and going, well, that's cool. Oh, that's neat. How do you stay away from like stepping on each other?
I don't know. I just try to make my own. I mean, there's some stuff I see, I'm like, I would love to do that exact shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been times where I was like, I'll talk to the guy, be like, hey man, I love that design. Can I not knock it off, but do something similar? And I've had guys say, yeah, not a problem. But I don't want to do something that's exactly like somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
If someone wants to do something like me, I look at it, to me, that's cool. I'd prefer not, but if you think my stuff's cool enough to make it your own, go for it.
Yeah.
And that's something about the veteran business community is, I don't think it's I don't think there's competition. I see it as being in the military. Like, you selling t-shirts is not going to take away from my business. I don't think, people wear Nike, people wear Adidas, people wear Under Armour, people wear whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean those other businesses are going to lose. Like, I'm wearing a pair of Nike shoes, Lululemon shorts, C4L hat. Like,
mm-hmm. Well, if you look at it in purely like numbers, right? If my market share is X and your market share is Y, and where those two intersect equals Z, and that's where we're competing or whatever, and like, you can get into the market of it, but it's you're all working to do the same thing, right? You're looking to support yourselves. You're pretty much every veteran organization I've seen so far is also giving back to another veteran organization. So everyone's helping the community, everyone's engaging with each other. That's why I love the the term Renaissance for it, because it's so like we're all just happy about like that's awesome.
It should be, right?
Yeah, as it should be. And I liken it to when we were overseas. Like I know a lot of guys that would say if given the opportunity, they'd go back there in a heartbeat. And yes and no. Like I think everybody would be like, absolutely. If it was the same guys at the same time in the same place, right? You have to have it's the experience that you want, not the actual slogging through the desert wearing 200 pounds of gear.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to do that again.
Yeah, no.
I think anybody that's ever done that is like, yep, I'm good. Don't need to try that again. I was talking to the Pandering podcast guys about it, and he was just like, shoulders, remember your shoulders. And I was like, oh, just immediately it hurt. But yeah, we don't want to do that. What we want is the way it was supposed to be. We lived life in a combat zone that was ideal, right? Everyone looked out for each other. Doesn't matter that I hated your guts. I would still take a bullet for you, right?
You're right.
And there's no question. There's no competition like at the unit where people are vying for course spots, and there's politics, and there's this guy talks to the sergeant major when they play hockey, and blah, 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 blah. None of that. And I look at this new Renaissance is similar, at least.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of a quote, manners maketh the man, right? And I think that has a lot to do with what our branding, or what your branding, what veteran branding has done, is that we come from a small portion of society where what you do affects other people.
True. Yeah.
And I think that's what Corporal for Life is doing specifically, as well as a lot of other ones like Mad Hatter and some other guys that are killing it.
I hope I am.
And absolutely, it's just because you're, as you said earlier, the consistency, right? You're it's that same standard that everyone kind of expects. You set the standard. Here's my standard. This is what I'm going to go for, and that's the way it goes. What's on the horizon? What are you guys up to next?
Well, I've signed a lease for a store in London, but I've pushed the date back due to everything, right? I don't even know when this store is opening again. Mm-hmm. Just keep hoping online keeps going. Luckily, I do have a full-time job that feeds myself and my wife. Yep. But yeah, a second store. We'll see how that goes in London, and then go from there. Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing stores all over the country. I don't know who wouldn't.
Yeah, right.
But to me, it's crazy that I have one store, and the fact that I'll have a second one probably in September is mind-blowing to me. And now I'm actually just looking to find staff for that second store. Right. So how have you been
managing throughout this? Because I mean, it's been hitting a lot of small businesses really hard.
I've been fortunate that before the pandemic, online was pretty good, and it's hit and miss, right? It's some days it's like, okay, no one wants to buy anything, and it gets you down. Mm-hmm. But again, you just have to look and say, okay, there's tomorrow. Tomorrow's the next day. And then hopefully sales just keep up, and that's it, man. Just kind of wait it out. But I'm just not taking my foot off the gas.
Yeah.
Even though I'm closed, I am still acting as if people are walking in here tomorrow.
Yep.
I told you I've got boxes and boxes of stuff sitting here waiting to be sold. Hopefully it does at some point. And in the meantime, I'm just I keep seeing these awesome other brands come up. So I'm just trying to either collaborate or just kind of introduce myself to these other guys because I like seeing it. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to have any competition. And if there is, but that's not what I'm about, especially in this Renaissance, like, as you said. Mm-hmm. I think it's cool as hell to see other brands coming out. Like, I try to message them as I see them and mm-hmm. either do a T-swap or a shout out or something like that. Mm-hmm. Because again, I'm not I'm not trying to take anybody from anyone, and I hope no one's trying to take anything from me. If anything, I hope people look at these other brands and say, hey, I want to buy that now. I want to check these guys out. We just did, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's that same mentality that like we want to see people succeed.
Exactly.
Right. And by seeing other people succeed, we succeed.
Right. Exactly.
As I think it's when the negativity comes into it, when people actively like well, I can't even say I don't know how this actually works in the clothing business, but if someone were to actively try and like put a store across the way from you and like try and pull customers away from you directly, that would be a negative thing.
Yeah.
But if you're you got your stores and I'm out west and I'm doing my stores, like why there's no competition there really. Online sales, we're all doing it. And I see the same thing in like the Canadian Walk for Veterans as well when I do that kind of stuff. Yeah, we're all basically trying to get the same money from everyone's pocket, right? But if we all help each other get that money from the pockets, then everyone gets money.
Exactly.
So that's good. What I was going to ask, you've done a lot of work, not only with Corporate for Life, but with some other organizations as well. What does Corporate for Life do for the community?
Well, Adopt a Vet is a local nonprofit. I'm not sure if they have their charitable status as of yet, but it's Brad, who I know well. He runs Adopt a Vet here in Windsor. I think he's got a branch going out west, if I'm not mistaken, or that was in the works anyway. Mm-hmm. So when we were open, we had we still have it. I'm looking at it. A donation box here on our table, and we recommend, because people sometimes come in and they'll want to give me a tip, and I don't want a tip.
Yeah.
I don't. I put the money where it can go to good use. And if someone does come in here and give me an extra $5, it goes right in the donation box. And then I try to, I said right from the get-go when C4L started, again, it was at my fire hall. It was, I forget the name. They no longer exist, but it was a nonprofit that came through for veterans. And I said, listen, man, I'm looking for someone to donate some of this money to. Would you be that guy? And he said, yeah, for sure. Unfortunately, they shut down. Okay. But I got to think of the name. His name was Jeremy. He had a truck. Anyway, you can cut this out. But I said I want to donate something to somebody, and I actually contacted the bigger charities, Wounded Warriors Canada, and most of them kind of just brushed me off pretty much. Like, yeah, sure, donate if you want to.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew they didn't need my money. So whenever I see another thing about Instagram and Facebook is you see all these new charities and like golf tournaments and everything for fundraising. I love seeing that. And I try to give something back to those guys. I'm not like, yes, I'm a business. Yes, I'm trying to make a living. But at the same time, I want to see veterans get what they deserve. Like the government doesn't, I'm just speaking for myself. I don't see the government doing a whole lot for us. Fortunately, I don't need anything other than my ears are fucked up.
The trick is, like, I've been in the nonprofit realm for a little while, and it's tricky because if you bring in a certain amount of donations, a certain amount of monetary donations a year, then you get grants from the government. Okay. And if you take and then if you have, there's like a bracket. So like if you take up to a point, you'll get grants. If you take up to a second point, that point you won't get those grants anymore because you'll be above the bracket or whatever. And then because you're making more money than is, I don't know, regulated. Yeah. It's weird, but it's an issue, right? So you and then you also have to worry about, whether or not you can get the tax receipts for it, whether if there's a certain amount that where you actually have to put in for it. It's a whole shit show. It's a shit show. Yeah, that I'm really glad that I have an awesome team that helps me out when I do it, because I have no idea how it works. But that's the trick, now this is again a great thing about the Renaissance is that there's so many things to donate to now. right? There's lots of organizations, and we just got involved. The walk got involved with we created this new thing called the Frontline Alliance, and it's other organizations that are all kind of doing the same thing but on different avenues, and we're going to work together and help each other out. And it's the same,
I love it.
Same process that you're talking about with the t-shirts, but the nonprofit / charity world, it can get a little cutthroat because you're vying for the same grants, you're vying for the same money from everybody's pocket, and it is very challenging. And you know, competition as a whole is just crummy. But it creates the change that's needed, right? The stuff that I'm doing with the walk is great. We go for walks, we chat, and we do all these great things, but fundraising is not a priority for us, which is a benefit because, you know, we take the money we raise and we just give it to somebody else and we're like, enjoy, right? Because what we want to see is people out there talking to each other. And unfortunately, with COVID, we haven't been able to do that physically. Last year.
Sure enough.
We will. Unfortunately, we're going to have to be virtual again this year, but it's the way it works. The one thing I wanted to ask you about was the I fucking had it and then it just disappeared on me.
Not going nowhere. So.
Yeah, no, it was in my head and then it disappeared. This fall, once everything starts to supposedly open up again, and you got a second store going, or do you have any plans to step away from fire, or do you want to keep doing that the whole time? And
I should probably watch what I say. I love my job, man. I love being a firefighter. I love everything about it. I remember becoming a firefighter was like, this is it, man. I'm at the pinnacle of my life. And I love my job. I love what I do. I love who I work with. It's the closest I've been to a military type, you know, the excitement, the action. Obviously there's the downtimes, but I don't know. I mean, if it comes to a point where this, you know, takes more of my time than that, and it makes sense, possibly. I never thought in a million years I'd even be sitting in a store. You know, when I started this, it was maybe I'll get a couple bucks extra a month for beer money, you know, and then it obviously over the last almost 7 years, it's grown to 1, possibly 2 stores and hopefully more, where I never thought that. But now, again, coming back to the podcasting, I just started listening to them. And the more I listen to, the more I realize that if you want something like yourself, like me, I always knew I was meant for more than what I was, just a job, right? I think most of us all think that, but it's just doing something about that. Like I worked my ass off to get on the fire department. Just like we all worked our ass off to either get in the Army, go on tour, get courses, et cetera, et cetera. You have to push yourself past that comfort zone. And I've pushed myself past that, but I don't think I pushed myself far enough. And I want to see how far I can push. And I've told people this before because social media obviously has those commenters that are going to talk shit. And people will see, hey, who do you donate to? Well, that's not enough. You don't donate enough. Well, you've obviously never run a fucking business because I have yet to see any of my fun money. Like I'm either reinvesting it back into this or giving it to something that I believe needs that money. So I just say the more that I can sell, the more I can donate, the more we can help out.
Absolutely. And it's the trick of ignorance, right? Like if you don't know what it takes to run a business, everyone expects that, you know, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to sit in the back office and I'm going to rake in the money and
like hell.
No, that's a shit ton of work. And you're right. Any money that you make pays the bills and then gets reinvested into the next sequence, next run, next whatever you got to put it back in. My family runs a ranch down in southern Alberta, and that's what happens every time. What money is made goes to fix the tractor and goes to fix some fences, and you always need supplies, and you make enough to pay the bills and to eat food and do some stuff here and there. But by the time you get to a point where you're sitting in the back office raking in money, that's decades. Right?
Exactly. And even then, man, like when I first opened this store, my plan was to be at this store every single day, mall hours all the time. Obviously, my wife wasn't super excited about it, but she understood what I was doing, what I was getting at.
Yep.
And then as I was only open for a couple months during COVID, before the biggest lockdowns.
Yeah.
And luckily I had some awesome friends, and like I said, my dad, all military people I had come in here and work this till so I could go out and do more for this business.
Mm-hmm.
Like me sitting at this store is great. I love talking to people. I love meeting people. But if I'm sitting here, that's me not being able to go do something else to grow the business.
Mm-hmm.
So when this finally reopens, I'm hoping I'll have this place fully staffed. I can go kick off London, have that place fully staffed.
Yeah.
And then on to the next town, hopefully.
Yeah.
Wherever that takes me.
It makes perfect sense too. Like if as a section commander, you need a 2IC that can get everything done while you're getting orders, right?
Exactly.
Like that's what you're doing right now. You're getting orders. You're going around getting people to order new stuff, and you need people. What?
I love it. I love it exactly how you said that. That makes perfect sense.
The trick, again, like I said, is getting people to see it. And the other thing is, I did a podcast a while back on inertia, and when you're moving, it's easy to keep moving, and that's what you want to do. You have to keep moving. Especially, you don't want to it'd be super easy to just like we said earlier, just stop and be like, so COVID beat me, man.
That's it, man. I'll tell you a quick story. When so I think it was December of 2019, or I think I hired a digital marketer because my Facebook ad skills were horrible.
Yep.
I was pissing money like you wouldn't believe. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to hire somebody who knows what they're doing, whose job it is to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
sales started going up and up and up. I was like, holy shit. And at that time I was running this out of a bedroom in my house,
Mm-hmm.
Which was a small bedroom with a desk, a computer, and just a shit ton of boxes full of shirts.
Yep.
And I thought, wow, this is it, man. Like I'm making it. And
then big time.
Yeah. And then COVID hit, and I was like, it sucks to even think I thought this way, but I said to myself, okay, well, time to take a break. You'll shut down while this whole COVID thing happens. Whoever, a couple months maybe, you'll just shut it down and get some rest. And then this opportunity came up, the mall, and it took me a couple of weeks of talking to different people, my wife, family, other business owners, friends, and should I do this, man? Should I open a store? Like, that's a big commitment to me, and I'm glad I did. Like, I'm glad I took that leap.
Mm-hmm.
Even though if it went if it went south, I would have been in some doo-doo.
Yeah.
But luckily it panned out, and Windsor supported this immensely, which is amazing. And I'm just glad that I kept with it and I didn't stop. Like I kept that inertia, and even now, man, we've been shut down for how long now? Since pretty much Christmas.
Yeah.
I had all that, momentum going, and then bam, smack in the face, you're done again. So like I said, I'm just keeping my foot on the gas.
Yep.
And
we did the same thing with the walk. It was coming in, I remember last year at the beginning of the year, and everyone's like, what are we going to do? We're going to be shut down. Are we allowed to have groupings of people walk around and all? Like, how are we going to do this? And I was sitting there thinking about it for a while, and me and the team were talking about it, and we're like, this really, we wanted to add a virtual component anyway. Let's just lean into it and make it totally and right. And because we see this all the time, right? If business comes up, they hit, some sort of outside of their control thing happens, and it comes apart, and they have to shut down. And, sometimes that happens. Sometimes you have to step back and be like, I'm bleeding money. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of it just, you have to, okay, how do I make this an opportunity? How do I work around this? And I listen to the Jocko podcast a lot, which I don't know if you do, but you should.
Okay. I've heard nothing but good about it. So
it is fantastic. And there's some pretty dark ones that like you got to kind of be prepared to sit through. But the big thing that I kept hearing on it was like, the only thing we can control is ourselves. And the one thing that when everything is going wrong and you are in control of none of it, which is a rare occurrence, but when that happens, the one thing you can control is how you react to it.
True. Yeah.
So if you react to it and you like, crap, fuck, blah, okay, well, I give up.
Yeah, that's the easy thing, right?
Yeah, then you gave up. That's it. And like I said earlier, sometimes that is the right call. And the acronym or the analogy that he makes in the podcast a lot is like, if there is an entrenched machine gun in front of you and everything that you're being told is to charge at that machine gun, is that the best idea? Right? Or if you saw an entire section get laid out doing a frontal assault on that thing just a second ago, is it really that smart to do that again? And then again, and then again. And it's like, no, you have to flank, you have to come at it from another angle, you have to think about it. Yeah. Play with it a little bit. Yeah. But it's a challenge, man. It really is, especially without support.
That's it, man. I have awesome support behind me. And there was another quick story in 2016. I was a year in. Things were going okay. I was selling mostly at the armories, the local armories. I'd go in on 3 parade nights a week, and I'd sell whatever I had, and it went okay. And then there was a point that it just kind of went stagnant, like no sales. I've got a bunch of stuff sitting at my house, and a good friend of mine, Cody, who was a veteran, he joined the E&K with me. I sat down with him and he was like, don't quit, man. Like, he goes, do you have something you like? I said, yeah, I like it, but I don't think enough people like it for me to keep going. He said, well, do you think it's something that people, other people would like? I said, I think so. And he said, don't you dare fucking stop. He said, keep going. And to this day, I thank him for that. Mm-hmm. That's almost 6 years ago. He told me that. And I've always kept that in the back of my head. Like, and even now, man, I'm some 6 years into this, and there's days I'm like, fuck this. Like, this is killing me. And all I'm doing is working, and what am I doing? But then the next day, something good happens. I'm like, yes, thank God I stayed in it. And that's just like in the military, man. Like, there's times where you just want to shut it right down. Oh, yeah. Like, no duff, I'm out. Come get me. But you don't. Like, there's something in your head that says, just fucking move, man. Mm-hmm. Get up and keep going.
I had another guest, a guy. It's a warrant of mine years ago when I was an instructor in Meaford, and his big line is like, "Don't get on the truck." And I was like, "Oh yeah, the truck." Yeah, that encroaching vehicle that's always on your rear. Like, oh shit, do I actually want to be that guy that like, okay, I'm getting on the truck. I've never been that guy. I've never gotten on the truck, and I remember there was a patrol overseas that I was smoked after 3 days, and I had nothing left. And I remember being like literally on patrol and watching my vision go, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm just like, left, okay, right, left, right. And luckily enough, they stopped the patrol. I probably was all fucked up. Like, I don't even know how I was doing, but they stopped. The medic came up, gave me some electrolytes, and like, I was pounding back water, but I had no sodium left in me. And but I still, even though I knew I was fucked up, I was like, I'm not stopping. I'm not fucking stopping.
That there's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah, good and bad, right? Like, there's a point where you should have said, okay, whoa, man, I'm like, I should have come earlier and said, I think I need a break. But at the same time, I wasn't going to be that guy. I couldn't.
Exactly. And now looking back, you're probably happy, right?
Yes and no. There was some stuff that came out of that wasn't ideal, but I was carrying 200 pounds of gear, man. It sucked. It sucked. But that's the key, right? Like, if you don't if you don't stop to process it, this is where I think the major failures happen, is when you don't look back on it and go, okay, I see where I screwed up on that one, and then adjust. I use this. I was talking to Corey a while ago, and he told me the same thing about the podcast too, of like, just if you enjoy it, just keep doing it. Like, it really, it's up to you. And I was like, that's a good point. But had I not gone back to some of the episodes that I was like, I didn't really like that, or there were parts of it that weren't really ideal for me, and then made those adjustments. And the one thing I said to him is like, we have to be ready to pivot. You can stop, assess, pivot, and move without having to like give up completely and walk off the court.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to be able to pivot. So we've been rolling for a little bit over an hour now.
Awesome.
And I just wanted to, first off, thank you very much for being on, because it's been great.
Hey man, it's an honor, to be honest with you. When you contact me, I was like, fuck yeah. I've never done a podcast. I've done very few interviews in my entire life, so I'm happy to do it. And
well, it is absolutely my pleasure, man. Seriously. But do you have any final thoughts on apparel, branding, anything like that?
For those getting into it or who are in it and again want to shut it down or don't think it's worth it, keep pounding, man. If one person buys your stuff, 2 people are going to buy your stuff, and then it's unlimited from there, man. There's people have money and they love this. I mean, in my experience, like I said, I come from a town that's as American as you can be. And I can't say we're not patriotic, but people come in here, they just see something they like, and then they hear the story, or all over the store, I've got kind of a mission statement and like a frequently asked questions section, and people they like to support veterans. They like supporting this kind of stuff. So for those guys out there just getting into it, fucking keep going, man. Like, and I'm always open to talking to other veteran entrepreneurs. Whether you're a fucking business that's been in for 10 years or just getting started, I love bouncing ideas off other guys. So
that's fantastic.
Don't shut her down, man. That's all I can say. Do not shut her down. That's the easiest thing to do, is just shut her down, but then you're going to kick yourself.
Yep.
I'd be kicking myself right now if I shut it down in 2016.
I have this great motivational video that whenever I do like public speaking, and one of the things that I use with it is like, it says, if you're heading upriver, and if you want to quit, that's always the option's always there. All you got to do is pick up your feet. Yep. And I was like, man, it is literally the easiest thing to do. Just let go. But you're right. You got to keep fighting. Got to keep moving. Got to keep just whatever it is. You got to keep going, because
and like if you can get through COVID or whatever this is, if you can get through a pandemic where everything's shut down, wait till things open up.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna see like,
oh yeah,
if you can survive this shit, you can survive just about anything. So
yeah, that's a great way to put it. Well, I mean, that's the same concept we had in the military, right? If you can survive this, you can survive anything.
Just about it.
We've survived quite a bit so far, so we can go longer, a little bit harder, a little bit more.
100%.
Yeah, I like it. All right, brother. Again, thank you very much, and I can't wait. Oh, I almost did that. I can't believe I did this. If anybody doesn't know who you are, social media wise, if anybody doesn't know where to go to find your stuff, how do they do that?
So it's either at C4L Apparel on Instagram, Corporate for Life Apparel on Facebook, or c4l.ca.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I'm always willing to. I love collaborating. I love talking to other veteran businesses. To me, it's inspiring. Like I see these businesses coming out of nowhere, and I love it. I love seeing it. I want to see everybody, do their thing, man. Like I want to see this renaissance just blow up, because the civilian business world is cutthroat bullshit, to be honest with you. You don't see that collaboration, or again, how many other companies donate anything to anybody?
That's true.
People are willing to spend $100 on a fucking t-shirt at some store. They don't get shit back. Nobody benefits from it.
Nope.
Like, the more of us that are out there, selling our stuff, doing better, growing, the more veterans benefit from it, the more first responders benefit from it, the more we benefit from it, really.
Mm-hmm.
There's times where I'm down in the dumps, I'm like, fuck, and then I see one of the other Canadian veteran companies do something. I'm like, you know what? Fuck that, man. Those guys are doing this. Let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's an old saying, if you want to help yourself, help others.
Yeah.
And that's it. All right. And
then don't give into the bullshit. Don't give into the stupid comments. I've had other veterans attack me, and at the time it sucks.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck, man, now I got my own people against me. But that's just, maybe I said the wrong thing to the wrong guy. It's unfortunate, but that's how it is.
Yeah. Maybe they're having a bad day, or maybe they're, it could be anything.
Just drown out the bullshit. There's more positive out there than there's negative. So
yeah. And we've heard much worse while we were in from our friends. So
exactly.
Really, exactly. I always take it as I just take it as a laugh. Like we kind of
more motivation.
Yep. And the amount of stuff that was said to all of us between each other,
yeah.
I think we can take it.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Thanks very much again.
Thank you, man. Great. I appreciate it.
That concludes this episode of The Toolbox. I really appreciate y'all listening. It has been my pleasure bringing you this awesome guest. If you like what you heard, please like, share, subscribe, and do all that awesome stuff. And I hope you can use some of the information that was offered. To all those putting on the line every day, first responders, military, veterans, civil servants, you guys are keeping us safe and keeping the country running. I really appreciate y'all. Hope to see you next time. Till then, stay open, stay humble, and stay focused. Shimon.